If you've been following along with me on the laundry room remodel, you already know that I've done some pretty cool things in here. However, there's one last thing we need to address. With the washer and dryer being centered under the new countertop, there's a narrow void on either side. My wife had the idea to build some narrow carts that could fill those spaces. One could be for a couple of hampers, and the other could have a few shelves and be used for snacks. Or cleaning supplies, whatever. So I fired up Fusion 360 and I drew these things. It's real simple construction. I'm thinking just 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch plywood. But I'll make the fronts out of solid walnut so that they'll blend in with the rest of the laundry room. And I'll make some edge banding to hide the edges of the plywood. It should be a pretty straightforward build. I bet you I somehow screw it up though. The first thing I do is bring down some rough sawn walnut boards that I had in the garage. And to start out the milling process, I began by running them across the joiner to give them one good edge. Then referencing that edge on the table saw, I can cut them down to just under 13 inches wide so that they'll fit through my planer. Over at the miter saw, I can cut them down in length a bit to get them closer to their final dimensions, while chopping off some of the nasty bits. Now it was time to set up the planer and to get these boards to their proper thickness. However, the issue that I was having was that these boards had a subtle twist to them and they weren't exactly flat. So with that in mind, I had to use a sled so that I could at least get one side perfect. To do that, I just plop it down on a board that's already flat and I screw in a cleat to keep it from moving around. Then I just stick in some tiny shims where it's wobbling and then I can feed it through the machine. Now with one good side flat, I can then ditch the sled, flip the board over, and get it down to its final thickness. Now I can trim them both down to their final widths back over at the table saw. And that wraps up all the milling that I'll need to do for this whole project. But there's still a lot of cutting that needs to happen. First off, I need to get some plywood cut down for the other pieces. The backs, the bottoms, and all the shelves will be made from 3/4 inch plywood. So I cut all those pieces first. Once I have them cut to width, I can then set up a stop block on my miter station and get them all cut to their final lengths using the miter saw. And with that done, I put in my Dados stack into the table saw, and I attached my sacrificial fence. This lets me cut in a rabbet into one of the edges of the front and back pieces for the bottom to fit into. With those cut, I can then cut in all the dados for the shelves on the cleaning supply cart. Now it's just a matter of me putting them together. I first start by clamping on some right angle braces. These will help me hold the bottom in position while they dry. I drop it in place and then add some clamps. Next up, it's adding all the shelves into the dados. A few taparoos with the mallet gets them centered just right. Then I can add more of those right angle braces to ensure that they're being held square. Then I drop on the top and use my rubber mallet to play you the song of my people. And throw on some clamps. Once dry, I can remove them and check to see if it dried square. Oh, me gusta. Nice. Next step is to cut down all the pieces that will be used for the side bracing. Cutting them to length at the miter saw. And then I make a bunch of thin walnut strips to use as edge banding. Once I have all the edge pieces cut to size, I can unwrap them from their bundles and begin to glue on the walnut strips to cover up those ugly edges. Then it occurred to me, I could probably skip all those annoying pop sounds if I used my parallel clamps. So I laid out several of those and I put some tape on the bars to keep them from getting any worse than they already are. Then I could spread some glue onto the top edges of each one, drop on a walnut strip, and squeeze them all up in the clamps at the same time. And once they were dry, I could use a flush trim bit in the router table and trim off all the excess. I sanded the tops of them all at once to get rid of the burns, and then they're ready to be put in. These braces are just meant to help keep things on the shelves and to help keep the cart from racking. To put them on, I just spread some glue, dropped them into place, and then added some clamps until they were dry. And when they were dry, I could remove all the clamps and start gluing on the rest of them. Now, in some cases, they needed to be spaced up a couple inches. For those, I just used my 1, 2, 3 blocks and lifted them up a bit. The other cart gets a couple that needed to be positioned much higher. So for those, I cut out some spacers from some scrap wood and used those to hold it at the right height. Now to reinforce these braces, I counterbored a couple holes on each end, drilled a pilot hole, and drove in a couple screws to add some additional strength. Then to cover up the holes, I just plugged them with a small dowel, flush cut it off, and then sanded it smooth. At this point, I could give it all a good sanding and get it ready for more edge banding. And to do that, I needed a bunch more thin walnut strips. They go on pretty easy, just a bead of glue, drop on the edge banding, and then clamp it in place. And when I needed to cut them to fit, I just used a couple pieces of scrap wood to help me hold my saw straight, and then I could trim it to size. Once they dried, I flush cut the ends off and sanded off any overhangs. In a couple spots, there were some gaps that I needed to repair. For those, I just smeared in some glue and then hit it with the sander to make them disappear. And presto! Everything gets a good sanding, and then I'm ready for finish. I'm using Odie's oil since that's what I've used on everything else in the laundry room so far. It goes on super easy, and I don't have to worry about not applying it evenly, or drip marks, or dry time, or any of that sort of stuff. I just buff it on with a Scotch-Brite pad and then wipe off any excess. It really makes the walnut pop, and it offers decent protection to the piece. Now let's make this thing mobile. I picked up some swivel casters off Amazon, and then I positioned them 1 inch from the corners. I drill several holes and screw them into place, being sure to make one of the screws a flathead to drive you nuts. Now I could add some hardware. After visiting my neighbor's kitchen, I found a couple handles that would be perfect for this on some of his cabinets. I drilled out a couple holes for the screws and then mounted them both onto the front face of each of the carts. Perfect. All right, let's give them a test fit. Oh, perfect. What's it hitting? Oh, no. No, I forgot to take into account the hoses. I measured the other side and not this side. Oh boy, alright, I gotta cut this down a little bit then. Well, nothing that a track saw can't fix. I nipped off a bit from the back of the cart, glued on a new piece of banding, buffed in some more finish, and as long as you don't tell anybody, nobody will ever know that I even messed up. We bought some Star Wars hamper bags that come pre-labeled for which side of the Force that you like to use, and then I could load up the other one and wheel them both into place. Excellent. They turned out great. Now I can call in the boss and see what she thinks. All right, come check it out. They're all in place.
Wow.
You like that?
It was such a boring room before with just the one wire shelf and stuff all over the floor.
Right.
Then I've got my cards and my table. It's so pretty.
The table's awesome.
The drying rack is beautiful. The shelves, the hanging rack. I love the industrial pipes.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And it's finished.
It's finished.
So pretty.
It only took me 2 years.
That's alright. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now I can get back to building fun stuff. Well, the laundry room is finally done. Thank the Lord. If you'd like to build these carts for your laundry room, you can find very detailed step-by-step plans over at my website at fishersshoponline.com. They're only $5, and it's a great way to support the channel. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave me a like and a comment down below. And if you're new and you feel I've earned it, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Crap! Oh no! None of them worked? Oh no. 4 of them worked. 2 of them didn't. Doggone it.
That's a nice. That's a spicy meatball.
Sat on my sander. That was exciting. Oh, well that's not even close to being flush. Krapskis.
Than there is in the actual build.
Yeah, depending on the build. But
Yeah.
Alright, hang on. Let me put this in.
Yeah. Oh, is it recording?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Shut up! Oh, it's not gonna stick because of the finish, idiot. Use the clamps. Thanks for that, Wicket. Thanks. Thanks for ruining my shot. You bad dog. You're a good dog. Alright, now I have to get back there to turn the camera off. And I have to crawl. Great. Crawling on the shop floor. Getting super dusty. Oh, jeez. Got it. Boop.